Welcome to episode 305 of the Whatnauts review show, where every week we pick a story and we talk about it. This could be a movie, TV series, anime, manga, comic book, audio fiction, all kinds of entertainment. We watch it, read it, or listen to it, and then we come back here and talk about it. My name is Melissa Wilkinson, and I am joined, as always, by Kyle Springer.
Yeah, Melissa, how are you?
I'm doing okay. Did you have a fine Halloween?
A fine Halloween indeed. Yeah. We just kind of stayed in, had our own candy. We watched a movie called Frankenhooker. Which
good choice.
Sounds as ridiculous as you are probably imagining. Have you seen that one?
No, but I think I've seen clips from it. I've seen other stuff from the director. I understand
Sure, yeah.
what a Frankenhooker is.
Yeah, it was a blast. It was ridiculous. So we had a good time. But it's been an interesting weekend here for us because we've had some tornado warnings and stuff in the area. Had to hunker down. Had to wake up this morning at like 6 o'clock for a tornado warning and do all that stuff, which is not a great way to start a Monday. But
no, especially a Monday,
right? Yeah.
For Halloween, my dad had to get his knee replaced, and it turns out Halloween is a great day to schedule a surgery because the staff dresses up in costumes. He wakes up in a recovery ward with an all Waldo staff.
I feel like that would terrify me even more because how do I know they're actual doctors? I don't. Well, they're not in doctors' uniforms. And if they are, I'm suspicious.
You got to remember, my dad is a brave boy. He's not scared of any Waldo. So while my parents were at the hospital, I handed out candy at their house on their behalf.
That's fun.
And there's a lot of modern anime characters I barely recognize, and I can figure out their names if I Google, like, anime girl with thing in mouth, and then I can learn who she is. But sometimes you will get a kid who's in one of those classic mainstays. We had a little blue Power Ranger.
Nice.
And our final trick-or-treater of the night, Optimus Prime.
Hell yeah.
I was honored to give the last of the Reese's to Optimus Prime.
He deserves it. He deserves our Reese's. Thank you, Optimus, for your service.
For your service, sir.
Yeah. Indeed. Well, if you guys did not know, Transformers are not just robots, they're actually aliens. And speaking of aliens,
true.
Melissa, what are we here to talk about today? Thank you.
We watched the 1997 sci-fi drama Contact.
Yeah.
I watched this on
Go ahead, please continue.
I watched this on only the finest of DVDs in cardboard cases with little plastic lips.
I feel like that's one of the ones you get at Walmart, though, in the like $2 bin or something like that.
It was once upon a time.
Yeah.
This is a direct dad hand-me-down.
Nice.
I had to read you the text on the front of this box.
Please do.
A message from deep space. Who will be the first to go? A journey to the heart of the universe. Which is like that's an entire anime episode title right there.
Sure, yeah. Neon Genesis Evangelion. Which oddly was something I thought about while watching this movie.
Interesting. You did not seem to have heard about this movie before I made you watch it.
Yeah, no, I was not really aware of this, did not know it was a thing. So yeah, I kind of went in knowing absolutely nothing about this. I think I ended up watching a trailer beforehand on just like the like most blandest of like Roku search function play the trailer, and it tricked me because when I played it, I thought there was no sound. And I was like, what is happening? There's no sound here. And the trailer starts off silent. Whereas
Yes.
I was like expecting some music or some like ambient sound or something. And yeah, you start to hear the sound as Jodie Foster has like, these headphones on. You start to hear the signal that she's hearing in that. And then I was like, oh, okay. I see what's happening. But I was like panicking for a sec, like, oh no, my TV, pause, I have to stop this. What's happening?
Should have warned you.
Yeah. But yeah, I had a good time. I enjoyed this quite a bit. I think it was interesting because I almost felt like it started off pretty slow, and I was like, I don't know, this one might not hook me like I was hoping it would. And then once it gets its hooks in, it's nonstop until the end.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I had a great time with this. My partner watched it with me, too. She did not like some of the government employees that were in this. She was like, they are very rude, very mean, very demeaning.
They really are.
Yeah.
They're rude or they're Angela Bassett. The two
Yes.
types.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I had an absolute blast with this. I would recommend it.
Wonderful. I picked this movie for this time in particular because it is directed by Robert Zemeckis, a man with quite a storied and varied career in film. But he
Yeah.
had a new movie coming out this weekend. I went to go see Here. And that's why I wanted to watch Contact. We thought about reading the graphic novel that Here is based on, but we couldn't find it for free or cheap anywhere easily.
Also, not great SEO on something just entitled Here. Right?
Hard to find.
Yeah.
Like Contact is more specific of a word.
I mean, it's easy. It's easy. It pops up easier than Here did. So I don't know.
It does.
Here, 1997, or
in
Contact,
lieu of Here,
1997.
in the space Here would go. Instead, we watched an earlier Zemeckis film.
Yeah.
We watched Contact, one of his finest.
Indeed.
And
It
definitely
was good.
one of his more serious films. This is a man who gave us the Back to the Future trilogy, Who Framed Roger Rabbit,
Yep.
Death Becomes Her, going all the way back to I Want to Hold Your Hand and Used Cars. His career can skew wacky, but it can also skew schmaltzy. And there is this rare spot in between that is just a sincerely well done adult drama.
Yeah.
Doesn't do it often, but he can be good at it.
Because whenever I think of Zemeckis, I like his name is like right by Steven Spielberg in my head.
They're friends.
Yeah, and I feel like in the way that Spielberg like really knows how to craft a film and guide you through the narrative of that film, I feel like Zemeckis like easily understands that too, but is. I don't want to say more willing to take risks, but it feels like he does a little bit of a wider variety of stuff. Whereas Spielberg, I mostly think of like blockbusters, but also serious dramas, like the drama side of that big blockbuster.
The year when he released both Jurassic Park and Schindler's List.
Sure,
He can do both.
Yeah. But yeah, not as you said, Zemeckis can skew a little bit more on the wacky side, which I don't necessarily think of that when I think of Spielberg, even though he probably has that right in his
he did in
portfolio.
1941. He'd like us to forget, but we know he did it.
He did. What's that? The movie with all the IP in it. Didn't he do that one?
Oh, Ready Player One.
Yeah,
He
I
did do
feel
that
like that's wacky. I don't know.
Never seen it. Don't
Neither have
know. I have no idea how many, if any, jokes that movie contains.
Yeah,
No clue.
to me, it's just the premise is wacky. I don't
True.
know.
Okay.
To see all of that stuff in one movie. Anyways, back to Contact.
Contact.
A young Jodie Foster, a young Matthew McConaughey are two of the main stars.
This movie is from 1997. They're not that young.
They're young for me. Like I knew Matthew McConaughey, but he doesn't really come to mind until like, and this is maybe telling on myself, until Tropic Thunder, which I knew. What, I mean, yeah, I saw that one too, but like I knew he was a star, but like it's kind of from Tropic Thunder onward that I started to actually like pay attention to him. I don't know why. Jodie Foster, I feel like I kind of missed out on much of her career. In the sense that I know my parents really liked watching her in a bunch of movies when I was younger, but I didn't really ever see those all that much. So
she has not done many family-friendly films that come to mind.
Exactly.
You as a child, you know who Jodie Foster is. We've all heard of Hello Clarice, and we know that she's Clarice, but you have to grow into the rest of your understanding of Jodie Foster.
Yeah. So it was interesting for me to see them as I guess what I picture as early in their careers. So it was good fun.
I'm happy you enjoyed it. You are a sci-fi guy. This is a harder sci-fi, more grounded, no giant robots. But I still thought it would have crossed your radar at some point, that you would have heard the transmission of Contact.
Yeah, no.
My dad's a sci-fi guy. He had this DVD floating around since whenever they made DVDs that looked like this.
Yeah.
And it was in 2020. Blank Check was doing a series on the filmography of Robert Zemekis. I had plenty of time on my hands, so I watched a lot of them that I hadn't seen before. And I really liked this one. What is stuck with it for me, it was 4 years ago that I watched it. I remember it was the day that the presidential race was called that I happened to have watched Contact. So very funny that it cycles back around at this point in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
What I like about it is that it is more hopeful than many other movies of this genre are. So often sci-fi can be cold. It can be dystopian. It can be used as a tool of satire or a cautionary tale. It is meant to warn you. Very rarely is sci-fi a tool for hope and comfort. And I find this movie comforting.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think very plainly the movie gets into themes of trying to understand things that we don't understand, right? Or we don't have the full picture of. It very plainly makes a comparison to religion and like people believing in a God that they can't see, that they just kind of have to take on faith. And I mean, as we'll get into when we get into spoilers, but how sci-fi and a search for alien life might have similarities to that. To religion, and not any one specific religion per se, but just the idea of believing in something that we don't
Yes.
necessarily know for sure is out there.
Yeah, there is Matthew McConaughey plays a man who is a man of the cloth without the cloth. Like he went to seminary and dropped out because he's like, I gotta have sex. Just look at me. So,
I'm Matthew McConaughey. I can't do this.
right. They smolder across the screen. Literally, they invented that phrase. It's just been lying in wait decades for me to arrive.
Right.
He does have a more Christian perspective, but like he is a scholar of many worldly religions, and I think the
Sure.
film does make a point that we're talking about faith in a generalized, like worldwide way. Like 95% of the people on Earth have some form of faith. You know, we're coming at this from a Western perspective, but we are talking about faith, the concept that all of humanity shares.
Yeah, indeed. Before we get into deep on all of that, let's circle back and do a plot synopsis of the film here. That might help us out.
Academy Award winner Jodie Foster plays Dr. Ellie Arroway, a woman who's grown up her whole life fascinated with listening to these radio broadcasts and trying to hear if there is life outside of Earth. She's working at the Very Large Array when she hears something. It is a message, some creatures, some entities, some life from a star named Vega is sending messages deliberately down to Earth. They need to decode these messages. It gives them the schematics for a machine, and it's about building that machine, discovering what it is supposed to do and how it is supposed to be used, and the fallout of that.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's to be honest, it's pretty straightforward, right? Like what you would think of as a first contact kind of story. The stuff of the military and government stepping in to be like, hey, what's happening here? That's all in there. I mean, it's like, that's the thing is I sat through the first maybe 20 minutes of it being like, this is kind of slow. And then immediately when she gets the signal and things take off
it's cooking.
from there. Yeah, it just ramps up the speed. It goes right into it. And it's easy to watch. It's easy to follow. It's not like complicated in the weeds science that you are expected to know and understand. No, it's just, hey, we got a signal. And then there's like a wacky billionaire in here that's kind of fun to watch. So
he is wacky.
Yeah. So it's a good one for sure. Angela Bassett plays not the president, like the vice president, some high ranking.
I also missed what her title is.
Let me see if it's on their Wikipedia.
Chief of Staff, press secretary.
Actually,
I don't know, but she's in every meeting. She's at all of them.
Yeah. And then oddly enough, they have some clips of Bill Clinton in this, which according to the Wikipedia, they did not actually get full approval to use that stuff. They had sent the scripts multiple times, like they had gotten okays on like that stuff, but not the like final like check. Yes, it's okay. And they were just like, well, you guys saw all the stuff. You didn't say no, so here we go.
I won an Oscar for Forrest Gump. What are you going to do?
Right.
If you won an Oscar for Forrest Gump, Mr.
No,
President?
Bill. No, you haven't. I mean, it depends on what your definition of is. It is, I guess, but anyways, yeah, it was a good one. It's surprisingly long.
It is,
too, but does not feel it like it.
Yeah, it's an even hour, 2.5 hours. it does have some segmentation to it. This is something I learned watching a bunch of Zemeckis movies at once. That guy loves long time jumps.
Sure. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can sort of... The movie's got clear get up and have a snack points in it.
For sure. Indeed. Cool. Well, I believe this would be a good place for us to do our housekeeping. And then when we come back, we will dive into spoilers and start discussing the film a little bit more in depth. So yeah, we will be right back. Thank you so much for checking out this podcast. We hope you're enjoying it. If you didn't know, we make multiple different shows here at the Whatnauts, and a lot of hard work goes into making them, so we would love it if you check them all out. But none of this is possible without your support. Head over to patreon.com/thewhatnauts and you can get access to over 40 hours of exclusive content, including our Patreon first podcast, The Pilots Club, when you sign up at our $3 tier. Of course, there is a free version of the Pilots Club available, but episodes are exclusive to our Patreon for 2 years before they hit the free feeds. If you're interested in buying merch, we have shirts, hoodies, mugs, and more for sale over at thewhatnauts.com/store. Another great way to help us out is by subscribing and leaving a nice rating and review on your podcasting app of choice. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel for video versions of the show, trailer reactions, and live streams. And lastly, you can always find out more information about the shows we make on our website, thewhatnauts.com. All right, we are back. Once again, a big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We love you a lot. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. Over on the Pilots Club, for the month of November, we will be discussing the pilot of The Outsider. It's an HBO original, right? Or it's available on Max, but I don't remember how they distinguish what's an HBO original, what's a Max one. But yeah, Melissa, you brought this one to the table. This is based off a Stephen King book, right?
Yes, which is how I heard about it on a Stephen King podcast, and I was intrigued by the concept. Sounded a little gnarly, so I thought I would try it out in a 1-episode increment on the Pilots Club.
Yeah, it's a good way to use that show for us there. So we will actually be recording that right after we're done recording this podcast, but it will be up on our website, on our Patreon for everyone ASAP. So it should already be out by the time this goes public. Over on the free version of the Pilots Club, we are releasing our episode on Mystery Incorporated, the fan-made pilot that is a live-action Scooby-Doo show. It is very Riverdale-coded, as we discuss in that episode. But that was a good one. I had fun with that one. So go check that out over on the free version of the Pilots Club. Right here on the review show, we wrapped up our spooky month in October. We did some Zatanna comics from the DC universe to kind of check out their magical side of the universe. And then we did the X trilogy. What's so funny about Zatanna, Melissa?
I went to a fundraiser trivia night last week, and one of the mini games they play between rounds, you've been to one of these, and you know, like the 50-50 and the heads or tails. They played a game I'd never seen before, which was dead or alive. You know, if you think this person is dead, cross your arms over your chest. If you think they're alive, I don't know, do something else with your arms. And they keep naming different people, and then, like, you know, large chunks of the group will get eliminated until there's just 2 people left.
Did they put Zatanna up there?
No, one of the people they put in was Tony Bennett. And I thought, Tony Bennett's alive. I just heard about him. And then I remembered just in time, no, dumbass, you just read about him in a Zatanna comic.
Yeah.
fictional character Zatanna had an encounter as a Vegas magician with Tony Bennett, fellow Vegas entertainer. This comic is written in 2016. Tony Bennett is dead. He lives on forever in the pages of Paul Dini's Zatanna, but the man is dead.
Oh man, good stuff. We also watched the X trilogy, a series of films by Ty West, which was also a blast. A lot of fun for us to check out. That was X, Pearl, and Maxine. Were in those ones. A lot of fun with that. Over on the Captain's Log, we did our Halloween special, which is always one of our most favorite episodes of the year. We tell, we take old stories and anecdotes that we've talked about on the Captain's Log, and we twist them into horror stories. And it's a blast. It's a lot of fun. We were also in costume, which is great. So go check that out. But yeah, that is about it for housekeeping for right now. So let's get back over to Contact and get into some spoilers. All right. Let's see here. Where should we start, Melissa?
Let's start with that infamous mirror shot. Hadn't you seen the mirror shot out of context before?
No, I have not.
Oh, I'm surprised. You and I watch, me more than you, I think, but we watch a lot of new rock stars, their breakdowns of nerdy content, and Eric Voss has frequently referenced the contact shot.
The contact shot. Yeah, well, if I have, it hasn't registered, or like they've mentioned it, and because I hadn't seen it, I can't picture it right. But yeah, when that mirror shot happened, just mind blown. Whoa, what is going on here?
I've seen it explained, and I still don't comprehend it. It is too cosmic and too godly for my feeble brain to know how they pulled out the mirror shot.
There has to be some YouTube video out there breaking down how they made that, or some interview with it. Like, where did you come up with this shot? What's happening here? Because I would genuinely love to know how they made that, because that is awesome.
I'll find one and send it to you.
That would be great. Yeah. So to explain this shot, the character, I forget her name now. I also just
Ellie.
saw her so that's the character's name, but the actress that played the younger version of her.
It's a young Jenna Malone playing young Jodie Foster.
I just saw her in Homicide: Life on the Street too. She's in that one. But so in when she's younger, her father dies really suddenly, and she discovers his body and has to run upstairs to get his medicine, and then run back down. And because it's so far away, she does not get back to him in time. And there's this like slow motion shot of her running up the stairs, turning the corner, running down the hall. The camera is right in front of her the whole time. And then it like obviously gets into the bathroom, but then it's her like medicine cabinet door that shuts, and you find out that you've been looking in the mirror the whole time of this thing, but then because the door closes, now the mirror is reflecting her bedroom behind, and it's a completely different scene. It's just it's hard to explain, but when you see it, I like out loud was just like, oh, that was cool. Like, how did they do that? Yeah.
Let's watch this again.
Yeah, let's go back. It was so good. So good.
That might be this film's primary legacy, is that one shot. And it is a legacy to be proud of.
That and another scene that is not as technical, but also stood out in an odd way. There's that one scene much later on in the film when Matthew McConaughey walks
Oh,
in and just does this really long smile, and the camera like focuses on him, and it just like stays on his face for too long. Stuck
he
in my
smolders.
head. Yeah.
I thought you were going to talk about when she's in the space capsule and she's like slipping through time and her face like blobs away from her own
That's a
face and it's her
neat one,
face from the
too.
future saying a line from the future. I feel like I've seen things that echo that in subsequent movies.
Man, yeah, there's some good stuff like that, especially in Loki, like when they
Yeah.
do their time travel stuff that looks a lot like that. Even in the little capsule thing, there's some great effects of like her seat is shaking, she's vibrating, but then when she like gets out of the seat, like she stops, and I'm trying in my mind to figure out like how are they doing this practically, like are they actually shaking the thing that she's in, but it's like she's floating and no gravity, so she must be on some kind of wire or something. So like how is all of this yeah, it was just like really interesting effects in this for a sci-fi film that is very tame in terms of like
Yes.
fictional concepts or anything, right? There's no big laser
Yeah.
guns or like you don't really see the aliens, you don't really like there's no like I guess you
No.
see some space travel, right? But like
The
it's real grounded.
effects. Yes, the movie is a lot of philosophical discussions or like bureaucracy. It's people in rooms. It's a great beeper movie. I love a beeper movie. And when it chooses to use special effects for these more fantastical sci-fi images, it like saves them up and then does them real well. There's not like a veneer of flashiness over the entire film. It opens that way. We do have that great, and this they specifically echoed in Loki, that pull out from Earth through the cosmos when you're going through all of space and you hear all of these broadcasts coming from Earth, all these movies and music and TV. And then the further you get out, it just turns into static and it zooms out far enough that it's inside Jenna Malone's eyes, metaphorically.
Yeah. It's a
Same.
great one for that, for like real interesting uses of that. There is one that I did not like visually, but I understood what they were doing with it, and that is when she gets to the star, when she's on Vega, and they're like, we'll make it look like whatever that beach was that she drew a
Pensacola.
picture of. Thank you. Yeah. That was the scene that made me think of Neon Genesis Evangelion, because in End of Evangelion there is like just I'm not going to explain all of that. That's way too complicated.
Who
But
can?
there is this like on a beach scene, kind of maybe out in space. It's real metaphorical. Well, like yeah, it's a whole map. But I was like, huh, kind of reminds me of the end of Evangelion. So, anyways.
When it zooms through space and then it is zooming out from her eye, that reminded me of the end of Men in Black, where you look into the galaxy is on Orion's belt. When you look into the marble and there's a whole galaxy in the marble. That was this same year. Parallel thinking,
Oh,
both
wow.
1997 films. Both summer
go.
films, I think. Weird to watch Contact in the summer.
Interesting. They must have put Contact out and then put Men in Black out after that, so they could do the little pen thing and erase our minds. Yeah.
Forget you've ever seen Contact. You might remember the mirror scene and nothing else. Uh, One of the more impressive effects in the movie for me is that machine that they build. And
Yeah.
machine is such a paltry word to describe it. It is stories tall. It is like the biggest piece of human construction you have ever seen. This weird, like, spinning gyroscopic circles, and then this big tower that'll just like boop, just like drop you in a marble through the spinning rings. It's almost like some weird kids board game. Like, don't break the ice, writ large, writ massive. And
Yeah.
all the shots when you just see that in the distance, it's got a terrifying scale to it. It's so big. It's an easy effect, but it works the way it's so far back in the distance that it's like
It's a little
grayed
blurry.
out
Yeah.
and faded. Yeah. That thing. That thing looks great.
Yeah, for like a 1997 CGI stuff, yeah, it looked pretty good.
And it's such a preposterous construction that even if it does look maybe a little too shiny and too slick, your brain still believes it because this is not a thing that even is on Earth. You've never seen this. You're never going to see it. What can you name that's the closest thing to it? Like, it can look sort of weird. It can look like it is made with 1997 CGI, and you still buy it because it is so outside of your realm of understanding and comparison.
Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, I was hoping that a little bit more of the film would take place kind of where they were at the start in the jungles. I guess they weren't all in the jungle, but yeah, like instead of just offices and in government buildings, I was kind of hoping they would be a little bit more out and about, but that's really not what this movie ended up being. As I was watching this, I was also thinking of stuff like Independence Day or Armageddon, where it is more action oriented, and this is not. But this
science action.
It feels like it would go hand in hand with those movies, despite it being not action oriented. So yeah, I think also I personally have not seen Interstellar, which is also a big, like, Kyle, you like science fiction. Why haven't you seen this yet? But from the like little bits and pieces that I know, or like clips that I've seen and stuff, I feel like this would go hand in hand with that one as a great 1-2
step one,
punch.
step two.
Also starring Matthew McConaughey. Also talk of like, well, if you go up and you stay out in space for a long time and come back, like everything you know will be different. It'll what will feel like a year for you will be 50 years for us here on Earth, right? Yeah, just
That's
all that kind of talk.
That is the most terrifying part of any sort of space travel or space adjacent experimentation. The time dilation, the losing. It is literally what humans have nightmares about. I don't think it's just me where you have the dream where you're like, time to get ready for school. I'll go put my shoes on. And you go to your closet and you put your shoes on, and then you walk out your door and your mom's like, it's 3:00. You missed school.
Like, man, but I had so many shoes to pick from. I just wasted all that time.
But you didn't. You didn't. You just went to your closet and put on your one pair of shoes, and somehow that took hours. You got lost in there, lost in a single straightforward task. Sci-fi taps into that primal fear of you have no idea how fast time is slipping through your fingers.
But then why did your shoes record 18 hours of you putting them on?
That's the best line in the movie.
Right.
That's the best part.
Here's the next thing that I want to talk about with this film. I already mentioned that this was a pretty straightforward plot. I also felt like this was not super complex in like the way it handles its themes and like how it talks about religion. It often felt like it was kind of just going for low-hanging fruit, but I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. Like we had talked about, we're not specifically talking about a certain religion, but more of the concept of faith as a whole. And I feel like that by doing so, that does kind of dumb it down to more base level arguments or philosophical views. And there was something that I was certain this movie was going to do, because I had felt like, well, it's a pretty by the numbers plot. Like I kind of knew what was going to happen. It seems to be making pretty like generic arguments. Again, don't mean that as a derogatory sense, but they just don't go so deep into it that
I wouldn't say generic or like dumbed down, but like
right,
very universal, very base understood.
level. Yes, yeah.
This and base level, like intentionally with a purpose, to like reach the greatest amount of people. This is based on a novel by Carl Sagan. I don't know what year the novel came out, but it's possible that he was at the forefront of some of this conversation in the modern world, and anything in the movie that might feel a bit oversimplified may only come from its age and the age of the subject matter it's based on.
Sure, or just the time limit of like, hey, we're making a movie, not like an 18-hour epic where we really can dive into all of the ins and outs of this stuff, right? But there was one thing I was certain they were going to do in the movie that I actually appreciate that they did not. They obviously make it a point to question Ellie about her like faith, her spiritual beliefs, right? Do you believe in God is something they ask her, and her answer is, I feel like I've already answered that based on the other things you've already asked me. She does not believe in God. She is a woman of science. And this is where Matthew McConaughey's Palmer Joss, that's his name, right?
Yes.
Palmer Joss,
exactly.
What a weird name.
That is his name, Palmer Joss.
He is like her almost gateway into spiritual stuff, but he's the one that's at least talking to her about like, well, like, I mean, you've discovered some crazy stuff. Like, how can you not believe that there is, something else out there? But in these hearings to pick her, they make mention of this, like, well, 95% of the world's population believes in some kind of higher power and some kind of God out there. So why do you, as a non-believer in that, as the 5%, why do you think you should represent the 95%? And it's I feel like a good question, especially when you're thinking of like, well, if we do get to have a conversation with these aliens, like, what are we going to talk about? Why are you the best representation, right? But also, it felt accusatory. Like, it felt like an attack when they were giving her that statistic of like, here's why you can't go, right? And then, of course, by the end of this, she has this experience, this otherworldly experience that she can't really put to words exactly. She's not sure how to say, like, I experienced this thing. I'm telling you I experienced this thing, but we have no real evidence to say that I actually did. In fact, all signs kind of point to maybe it didn't happen. and I was expecting her to like put that line back on them, as they were then on the attack for being like, well, how dare you have this transformative experience that you are like, you mean we need to take this on faith? We would never, right? And I was expecting her to be like, aren't you the one that said that 95% of people take the existence of God on faith? And she never used that line to like spit it back in his face, in his face, which is what I was expecting her to do, and to have that be the thing that like shuts him up. But they don't.
Not in so many words. And it's more, she's less, her mindset in that final scene is less accusatory and but I've caught you in a fallacy because earlier you said this.
Right.
It's more like she is shaken to her core. She's like, I understand now. Almost, I've been foolish to denounce this. How can I now throw that in anyone's face?
Yeah. But even like she wouldn't have to do that as in like an aggressive attack to be like, haha, I've caught you, right? I've trapped you now. Like, I feel like to even be like you said, to be like, I understand now. Didn't you say 95%? Like, I am now of that 95%. Even if it's not the same God you believe in, I believe that there is something else out there, right? I have this experience, and that could have been a bridge to help her relate to him. But I'm glad she did not cross that one, because it would have like been even more low-hanging fruit in my opinion, right? And I like that she just is like, I have no words. Like, I don't know how to explain it.
Yes.
I don't know how to get you to understand this. I just have to live with this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I thought that was interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, I like that it is a story about somebody who relies on facts because facts are ever present. She's had so much loss in her life. Her mom died just after she was born. Her dad died tragically when she was 9 years old, and she couldn't run to the mirror fast enough. Seems like she's had trouble forming connections since then. You know, her only real mainstays in her life are giant satellite dishes and William Fichtner, I think.
Yeah.
And she has some good points when the government is questioning, why didn't the aliens send a message in a language we could understand? And she says, they sent it in math. Everybody speaks math. There's like 120 different languages, spoken, written, verbal languages across the world. Math is universal. It's just what Lindsay Lohan says in Mean Girls. Math is the same everywhere.
Math is math. You can't change math.
she has some points. You understand her. And then Matthew McConaughey also. I like that it is a movie about not changing your opinion, not changing who you are, but truly broadening, expanding your mind, your horizons, expanding your empathy. It's like her mind and her heart are working together. They both have to learn the same thing of you can still stand by your principles while you learn so many more of what you thought were the boundaries around your world. You can't believe the things that you can see and experience and feel if you put yourself out there, if you trust and believe and have lowercase f faith. I like a movie that is about lowercase f faith.
Yeah, absolutely. Can we talk about wacky billionaire guy here? I forget what his name is. Haddon or something like that.
Haddon.
Haddon. Yeah. So part of the story is that she is always trying to listen to for these transmissions, and they come so few and far between, or they're explainable in a way like, oh, this is bouncing off that thing and coming back, right? That all of her research tends to get shut down when there's no results. And so she's out there kind of pitching herself, her research, and she's about to get the no on one more try, and just absolutely starts to blow up. Like, no, you listen here. Here's why you should give me all this stuff. And in the midst of that, the people who are listening to her pitch gets a call on a phone, and it is like the CEO of their company, who immediately is like, give her whatever she wants, right?
Right, because he is secluded, sequestered. He's watching everything through cameras, which is such a like, it could be creepy in any other context, but here it's just sort
is
of
at
like,
the start.
It's more like delightfully weird. And just like, what's this? Like, you're curious about it. It's such a fun mystery in this movie that is all about mystery and curiosity. Also, the boardroom she's in has like the most ostentatious conference table I've ever seen.
It's great.
They're in like a giant horseshoe ring around her. And the surface of the table from where the suits are to where she is like 6 feet across. Why does your table need to be that wide?
It's wild. But yeah, so she gets the funding, and has not seen Haddon in person, but then eventually does get to meet him. Is played by John Hurt, fantastic actor, and just this guy like. I'm not a fan of multi-millionaires, billionaires. I don't believe they should exist. But this guy's so wacky. I just kind of want to see what all his adventures are. Whenever we see him from one scene to the next, he's doing something different, but to the extreme of, like, one time it feels like he's in some like secret, like the tallest tower of some skyscraper, to on like a secret yacht, and then is like out in space randomly, and like what is happening?
No, I think he's only definitively in two places. I think he just is in some sort of a super plane that flies around the world constantly. He's like, I like to keep my interests mobile. Yeah, and it's all this beautiful wood paneling,
he's always
built-in little home entertainment system. He just flies around up there all the time. Why set foot on the ground? It's like those people who just live their lives on cruise ships. Because buying cruise ship after cruise ship ticket is cheaper than owning a home.
He's not a never node. He's a never ground.
A Neverland?
Yeah, Neverland.
And he does like fly down, and they pick her up, and he takes her up, and he's like, welcome to my sky home. And he's like, I've believed in you since you were born. I was tracking you the way Professor X tracks New Mutants. Like, I encouraged your dad to give you a telescope. I don't know how
a weird detail in there that is just completely glossed over when they mention that, like, your dad was advised to give you science stuff.
By whom? How? This part of the story is like, John Hurt came out of a comic book and they put him in a serious, like, philosophical, hard sci-fi novel. He's one of the better parts of the movie. Like, he is really entertaining, really fascinating.
He really is.
It's only when you think about it too hard that you're like, hold on.
It's so ridiculous.
None of this doesn't just screen credulity of logic. This strains the genre that you are in and the tone set.
Right.
What
Yeah.
story is this?
Yeah.
And then it escalates where he's gotten cancer. Maybe he had cancer the whole time, I don't know. But now it's gotten so bad that he has to just go live on Mir. He's like, the low oxygen and the low gravity are keep cancer from eating me, I guess. Which I've never heard in any other context. I've never heard, even in reality or in science fiction. You know what'll make you healthier and slow your disease? Just
Not
go float in
breathing.
space.
No,
Yeah,
no air.
ask Russia if they'll take you in.
Colony on Mars. You never know.
But he's also very sweet. As he's an absolute weirdo, but he likes Ellie. He's on her side. He's a really harmless character. I mean, you can talk about the carbon emissions of his jet home, but within the frame of this movie and the story it's telling, he's not hurting anybody, and he's very altruistic. And the flex that the entire world has spent like $1/3 trillion building this giant gyroscopic machine that's going to send you to space. Jake Busey blows it up. Right. The whole world pays for one of them. And then he's like, I knew a Jake Busey would blow it up. I spent my
Secretly
own money.
built a second one. Yeah.
Yeah, on the Hokkaido island of Japan.
So funny. Just what an oddball character in the midst of all of this.
That thing it took all of the Earth to do, I just did it on, just as a backup. It's like on a cooking show where they spend all that time prepping the food and they take an already
pull out a
pre-made
second
one out
one,
of the
yeah.
oven. See, it's simple. You just do this.
Yeah. Yeah, so he was an interesting character for sure. Can we talk about so yeah, the first machine gets destroyed. There is this preacher, this religious fanatic that ends up blowing it up and himself up with a bomb. And this is when it is revealed, there's two. There's a second one in Japan. And they send Ellie, right? And she gets set in this device. It's a cool looking device. And as all of these things are spinning, it's gonna drop her in the center, and they don't know what's gonna happen next. And for her, she gets like rocketed through all these wormholes, gets to see different like galaxies. She gets to see a planet where she can at least like notice some kind of civilization happening on that planet. But then when she's launched through like her fifth or sixth little wormhole, she ends up on Pensacola. I don't know why, but when I was watching this, my mind immediately went to the Venture Burroughs, the Spanakopita, right? That's Spanakopita. That's where she is, but it's not.
When she's a kid, she loves her ham radio, as all 9-year-olds do. And she's trying
science
to see
things
how
her father was advised
advised to give her. She's trying to see how far away she can reach with her ham radio, and they live in like Iowa, Wisconsin.
I don't even remember. Yeah,
they mention it's Wisconsin, and she gets somebody who's all the way down in Pensacola, Florida. And she draws a picture of what she thinks Pensacola is. And it's these wiggly palm trees on a beach. And what the aliens, the Vegans, who read her mind and her past, they project to her an image that she would know, that speaks to her directly, personally, and that would comfort her. So they take her to an even more heightened version of what 9-year-old her thought Pensacola was.
Yeah.
And they resurrect her dad, and her dad is the mouthpiece of this entire alien civilization. But he is also her dad. So he's saying things like, this is the way it has always been done for billions of years, and you have your mother's eyes.
Right, yeah. It's interesting. This was the thing that I did not like visually. It really did look like green screen, but I see what they were going for in the sense that of like this is some made up place that the aliens are compositing right out of her memories to be like you are comforted by this. So I understood that.
It's from 1997, and like there's no point complaining about how effects in old movies look. They look the way they look, and you should be happy they look the way they look, because if they didn't, nothing today would look like anything. Contact has to walk so that Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes can run or whatever.
Run,
And you're right. The aliens themselves are doing visual effects at her.
Yes, yeah. And so it's interesting to me because they've like transformed into her father to kind of, like we said, comfort her, ease her in, but then they also don't, like, there's not easing her into anything, because shortly after that they like send her back with no plan of like, but you'll be here next week, we'll get you back next month, right? It's just, this is how it's always been for billions of years, and there's like
and they
no
say,
like, so we've been around for what, like, how come, like, do I bring other people next time? Is there a bigger machine? Like, there's no plan. But then it ends with this like manifestation of her father kissing her on the cheek and on the forehead. And in my mind, I just go, she got smooched by an alien. And now the only thing I can think of is a knockoff of Touched by an Angel called Smooched by an Alien. And it's aliens posing as real people. You fall in love with them, you make out, and it's just like, I think that was an alien. Right?
I like that it's only like chaste parental kisses on the cheeks or forehead.
Yeah.
Maybe a back of hand. Maybe.
M'lady.
Just, you know, if that alien reached out and touched me, he just clapped me on the shoulder and called me sport.
Hey there, sport.
They only do that. The alien, they're from Vega. I guess you'd call them Vegans. Alien entity doesn't get a name. It's just Space David Morse. Space Morse tells her, this is the first step. And he repeats something that her actual father said to her when she's like controlling the dial on her ham radio. Small moves. You don't need to jerk it around. Just like little adjustments here and there. Follow through, patience, and you'll get to where you're going. You'll find what you want. And the alien wants to echo that same message to her. This is step one. Step one is one person gets to talk to their space dad and be questioned in front of the entire Congress. And we have no clue what step two is.
Yeah.
What happens next? Two people? Lip kissing? We don't know.
Does someone else get like a fake Hawaii that they get to go to and see their mom, and they get smooched by an alien too? And then do both of them come back? Because like, that's the thing. If they have to do this for one person, wouldn't they have to do this for every person that comes? Would it not be easier to like send one of these aliens down to Earth then, and that be the next thing, and have that be like, have them project a human-like figure and then slowly reveal themselves to be like, I'm not actually humanoid. Maybe I am, but I'm not a human, right? I'm not one of your species. Because that way that could be on our news and media, and everyone would know what they look like, so that when they bring a whole Greyhound bus of people to space, they won't be like, oh my god, what's happening? My mind can't handle it. I'm melting. Right? I don't know.
You reminded me, there was a sci-fi show called Invasion, not the one from a couple years ago. There was a sci-fi show called Invasion that came out in 2005 on ABC, clearly trying to ride Lost's tailcoat. Do you remember the show at all?
Let me look it up. It's not
Invasion 2005.
Invasion 2005. Yes, I remember, because they even have like they used the same like DVD cover. Here's all of our cast on the front.
It is the same structure. They used the same like JCPenney photo shoot template for the Invasion cast as they did for the Lost cast.
Yeah.
In this, I think it is a sinister alien invasion. What if natural disasters were alien smokescreens designed to mask something far more ominous? It's not what you're saying. Just the fact that you were talking about an alien coming to Earth made me think of this, because it stars William Fichtner.
Yeah.
Who in this movie, in Contact, gives off a genuinely like friendly, warm, comforting presence. But as soon as you see him in the commercial for Invasion, you're like, that guy's the alien. It's him. Just look at his face. He's an alien. That guy's great in everything, and he can really play it all: scary alien or friendly scientist mentor figure.
Yeah. I did not watch any of that show, but I remember
someday we should
seeing ads.
Let's do this pilot.
Yeah, we could do that one down the road. I think that'd be a good one for sure. Let's see,
Evan
what
Peters
else about
was in it.
Contact?
How old was Evan Peters?
He looks like he's like, I don't know, 17, 18.
Little baby.
Little baby. Anyways, Contact. Other stuff. Yeah, I'm sure we'll get into our recommendations in a little bit here, as we always do. But this feels like without it, because like there's certain things that I've seen on the internet of like, oh, I've seen a GIF of this, or I've seen an image of that, or a clip of this, of like other shows that when I finally watch it, I'm like, it's that show, and I now understand the meme or stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
This feels almost like a hidden one of those, like we had discussed. I hadn't seen the mirror shot, at least that I remember, but it really feels like this is a movie that has influenced so many other shows, that some of which that we've even covered here on the review show and stuff like that. Sci-fi that takes a similar approach, or like we had said, puts Matthew McConaughey in a similar position, right? It feels like a hidden gem of that. It's a good sci-fi film. Watch this, because I think a lot of other things pull from this.
It's good at being a sci-fi film. Like I mentioned earlier, it is a very different tonality than many sci-fi movies. I feel good at the end of this movie, even though Jodie Foster has endured, like, so many people don't believe her. She's back to just, humanity as a whole is not that much closer to deeper truth, deeper understanding. So many people died. Jake Busey caused that gnarly explosion, and Tom Skerritt is dead. Like, there's a lot of bad things have happened, but the sense of I never. She's a character who's like, I never thought that could happen. Like that changed not just my expectations, but my entire sense of what expectations are, my sense of belief, how I think, how I see myself and
Right.
see the world, how I relate to other people. There's been such an incredible, massive seismic shift in her for the better. Like, I leave this movie feeling pretty good and hopeful. And you can't say that about every sci-fi movie of its same caliber. You don't walk out
Yeah.
of Ex Machina like, oh, I just love people and what we can do together. But here you do.
Humanity's on the right track. Guys, we did it. Good job.
This is one of the few sci-fi movies that is pro-humanity. Raw humans.
Yeah.
And many of them are not. And I'm like, but a human is all I can be. I don't have another option. I can't be a different thing that you like better. I just am what I am, and I'm a
Melissa.
human.
Anyways.
I like that about it, and it's...
Yeah, that's good.
I don't think it has... I'm curious what the legacy of this movie will be besides just a landmark in visual effects and like technical film achievement. What it will live on to be besides that. There are younger people, people younger than us, like Gen Z kids, who do have kind of a fascination with whatever the 90s were because they didn't really experience them. And things like Friends or Frasier continue to have a life.
Yeah.
This is a great beeper movie, and I wonder if it could live on, at least in that, as like a 90s style plate.
Interesting. Yeah. I get what you're saying. That makes sense. I think that's kind of it for me. I don't have much else to say on this one. It was a blast. Go check it out.
Yeah, Angela Bassett, MVP here. Most of her role in this movie is just saying, Doctor, what does that mean? Doctor, can you explain this?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like if you gave her an entire film of questioning a doctor, that's her at her greatest, and that'll win her the Oscar.
Good stuff. Well, Melissa, are you ready for bingo? Should I pull up our bingo sheets here?
Let's get it.
All right. Let's see. Pulling this up on screen so everyone can see where we are. Melissa, I think I can fill in my quota. My 3 planets.
Yeah.
Even though I think Vega is a star, technically, I think is what they said. I don't remember, but we went to some
Star
other
is planet.
Yeah, some other heavenly body, so to speak. So I had 2 out of 3 on that. I've now gotten my 3rd movie where we get to go to another planet, which marks this one off as complete. Bum-ba-dum, which also gives me another bingo. Woohoo!
Nice.
This is my
We're
3rd
closing in.
bingo. Yeah. You have 1, 2... Oh, did I just take the... No, you... Oh, no, you also have 3. So we're tied right
I also have 3.
now. Yeah.
I have 2 things that kind of fit this movie. I have Time Loop, which I believe we put on with the intention of it being more like a Groundhog Day. But when she is in that space pod, she does seem to like pass through multiple, temporalities. And we see her saying things she hasn't said yet. Does that count as a time loop?
I didn't think it did because I have that one too.
Okay.
I see what you're saying, and you're right. You would do it. There is that one bit where like the extra head pops out and she says a line from the future, like a double exposure. She's not just actually growing a second head, but it's like
not like it's not Johnny Knoxville in Men in Black 2. Double exposure is a good way to put it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I see what you're getting at there. And I think that might technically fill it, but not what we were intending with that one.
Not the spirit of it.
Yeah.
Another square I have is character pesters others to read their book. In honor of Riley Poole in National Treasure 2. Matthew McConaughey has written a book. We see him like going on, not like promoting it, but like when he goes on talk shows to like share his perspective, they will mention, and you're the author of the New York Times bestseller. And Jodie Foster does read it. She's like, well, I read your book, so I know what you're thinking. But he's never like, my book, you gotta read it. I'm from Texas.
Yeah. So what? Remind me again how pestering Riley is in those National Treasure movies.
We see him actively promoting the book. He's so passive aggressive when Nicolas Cage has not read the book.
Okay.
And he's like, well, if you guys would have read my book, you would have known this thing about the Knights Templar.
Melissa, I want to say no to that one too, and
okay.
I feel bad because
fair. That's
either
very
of
fair.
them would have gotten you yet another. I was about to say Yahtzee, another bingo. But I think the spirit of that one is that he's actively pestering people. Like, well, if you had read my book, if you just bought my book, buy my book, right? Whereas this, like, he's promoting it, but he's on a talk show on a TV in the background.
It's his job, yes.
Right, yeah. He's not pestering you.
This is the third time we've encountered McConaughey. And this is also at least the third time we've encountered Larry King playing himself.
Immediately when we got the clip of Larry King being like, and why should we send you to outer space? My mind went to the interview that Danny Pody did with him, and he goes, Larry, I'm on DuckTales. That's why we should send me to outer space. Larry, I'm on DuckTales. Good stuff. I think that might be our bingo update for this week.
Congrats on your bingo.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Sorry for blocking two of yours.
No, perfectly valid. Those were edge cases.
Let's get into recommendations. Melissa, I have a feeling that we might have some overlap here on what our recommendations might be, but I actually don't know what you have to recommend. So hit me. If someone enjoyed this, what else might they like?
Well, first off, we timed this to come along with Robert Zemeckis' new movie Here. I went to go see Here yesterday. If you've seen the trailer, the movie is exactly that. No more, no less. I went in understanding what I was in for, and the movie met my expectations and needs. It's very corny, but I'm a Midwesterner, and I like corn.
I really want the tagline on the DVD of the movie Here to just be, where? Here. Just a single word. Where?
Have you seen the promo for this movie that's like starring Tom Hanks, and Tom Hanks?
I've seen one trailer and it was like a month and a half ago ish. So I don't remember.
If the promotion is at least that silly, maybe we will get a box.
Where? Here.
Here. People have been complaining about the visual effects and the de-aging on Tom Hanks and Robin Wright, and it didn't bother me. I feel like this stuff mostly bothers us just because we know the actors aren't really that age. We've seen them when they are younger. I can buy into it. I can suspend my disbelief very easily.
Sure,
the one thing that did bother me is when they dub Tom Hanks's voice over a teenager. Like, whoa. I don't like somebody, and I'm sure it's just a digitally de-aged Tom Hanks, and he's in the background, and you don't see him very clearly. I don't think that it's like we literally dubbed Tom Hanks over a living 17-year-old boy. I'm sure it's a construction and
Just
amalgamation.
photoshopped his mouth on top of the other kid.
But just a teenage boy who sounds like the Tom Hanks you've known your whole life to be an adult man is like, no, that one I know. That's a problem.
That's a party
That's
foul.
Not true. I don't believe you there. If you saw the trailer for Here and you were intrigued, you'll probably have a fine time. I had a fine time.
Good.
But to talk more about movies that are more like Contact, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, particularly in its elements of the whole world being fascinated with this message and decoding the message.
Sure.
And how there's some people who are willing to just throw their mortal lives away and just go to space. We've already mentioned Interstellar a few times. I thought of Apollo 13 in those scenes where it is the entire control room of people at their computers just like systems are go, security is go, communications go. Like every sci-fi or action movie we've ever watched rides on the backs of those people. And Apollo 13 is the one where like the guy in the pocket protector really gets to shine.
Yeah.
It's not just Tom Hanks the astronaut. It's also Clint Howard in his little glasses punching buttons on a computer. You can't do it without Clint Howard.
Yeah.
There is a theme throughout this movie of fate, of maybe this thing was supposed to happen the way that it did. Most notably in the death of Ellie's father, but also smaller things, like when she thinks she's going to go, that Angela Bassett's going to call her up in the press conference and she's going to speak about the signal they've just found. And instead, Tom Skerritt goes up there and she looks just distraught about it. But then because she's not at the lectern talking to TV, she notices she's like got a beeper page, and then she can go and be like, oh no, what's the signal doing now? And she wouldn't have done that if she hadn't missed out on this other thing. If they had chosen her for the original mission, Jake Busey would have blown her up and she would be
right. Yeah.
Like there is reason behind every setback that she has. And that theme in particular really makes me think of Signs, a movie that's all about this happened for a reason. Keep the faith. You'll see the bigger picture someday and it'll all make sense then.
Yeah.
I'm a big X-Files fan, and science versus belief is one of the major themes of X-Files, not just in Mulder, the UFO guy, and Scully, the skeptic. But part of her backstory is that Scully was raised Catholic, and holds both this very scientific mind and this sort of, bred into her Catholicism. And there's not just the struggle between her and Mulder, but that kind of push and pull within herself. And sometimes she is the one who's really believing something and Mulder isn't. Early in season 1, like episode 9, there's an episode called Beyond the Sea, where Scully's dad dies. Around the same time that Mulder and Scully are called in to investigate this death row inmate who claims he can talk to the dead. And if he can talk to the dead, that means he can talk to murder victims and find out who murdered them or like where their bodies are buried and maybe save other lives.
Yeah.
And Mulder's the one who's like, this guy's a scam artist. I don't believe he can do that. Like I gave him a piece of cloth and he identified it as being from this murder victim. I got that off of an old basketball jersey I have. Whereas this man, played by horror icon Brad Dourif, says something to Scully, and she's like, that's something only my dad knows. Mulder, I think this guy's telling the truth. Uh, that
Yeah,
that if you want a specific episode of X-Files, that's a really interesting look at faith versus science. That's a good one to pick.
for sure.
Uh, Also, just for in the genre of tiny career woman who will stop at nothing to achieve her goals, this movie makes me think of Twister.
Interesting. Yeah. Yep.
Both of these movies start with a flashback to our heroine when she was younger. She experiences this great tragedy. She loses her father. This informs her life's mission. Her life's mission has her working out in the field, surrounded by like oddball scientists. She can't hold on to a romantic relationship, and she is willing to die pretty much to look this thing in the eye
Yeah.
and see what it's all about.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then
That's a good one.
nobody's in danger in this movie. Broadcast news. Kyle, have you ever seen do you know this movie at all, Broadcast News?
Maybe. I don't know.
It's from the late 80s. It stars Holly
Probably not then.
Hunter, Albert Brooks, William Hurt. They play newscasters. Well, William Hurt is like the hunky anchor desk newscaster. Holly Hunter's the producer, and Albert Brooks is like a field reporter who wants to be hunky news anchor guy. And
I need to be more
it's
hunky.
Yes, that's the struggle. Well, you're handsome enough as you are, Albert Brooks. Never change. This is a movie that is about your drive for your career and your principles. This is a principles movie.
I gotcha. Yeah. That's a good one.
And with this like love triangle angle to it also. And it's the scene where Jodie Foster gets the signal and she's like driving into the headquarters, the research lab. She's on the walkie-talkie. She's screaming at those guys. They're panicking. They're pulling things up on the computer. There's like rushes in this movie to get something on the news that have that same sort of frantic energy to them. That's my list.
Interesting. Cool. Well, yeah, I would put Interstellar up there, like you had already mentioned. We also kind of mentioned the more action-based ones, like Independence Day, where they're fighting aliens instead, or Armageddon, where it's the end of the world. This comet might hit Earth, right? So there is stuff like that out there. The one I was thinking you were going to say that you did not is The Leftovers. The show The Leftovers.
Sure. Yes.
Especially in this movie when, like, once they announce that they've received this signal, everyone just kind of gathers in New Mexico, like wherever they heard this signal, and at like the religious people are there, the people who are like cheering on the aliens are there, the ones who just want to like smoke and do and do drugs and witness space, have their mind expanded, right? They're out there, and there's some very similar imagery in The Leftovers with
Gary
stuff
Busey.
like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Each
right?
must
Yeah.
have a Busey.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't put that together, but yes, you are right. Yeah, and I think even that show deals with themes of faith, and did this happen for a reason?
Yes.
Or is there some scientific explanation for what happened here? Why did all these people disappear?
Why
And-
those people? Why some
Yes.
people and
Why
not
not me?
others?
Yeah.
Yes.
And so yeah, I think that show would go great with this. If you enjoyed
That is a good one.
Contact, go check out The Leftovers. I would say also go check out The Expanse. if you like hard sci-fi stuff, this is more of like people are already living out in like the asteroid belt and on other planets and stuff like that. But it also has, at least in the first season of the show, maybe the first 2 seasons of the show, but the whole thing kind of expands out from that. Is they find a signal from, they think, some kind of alien or something like that, from like way further out in space than anyone has ever been to. And that kind of starts up this race of like, okay, well, we need to build something to like hone in on that signal. Let's make a portal to like do all this, right? So I would say go check out the Expanse, because that's also a like hard sci-fi stuff. It's not the like, we got magical space wizards out here with laser swords and stuff like that, but also Star Wars is good, so cool. Yeah.
Also, Star Wars is good.
Also, Star Wars is
Have
good.
you heard
that
before?
It's not what I'm recommending here right now, but you know, just slipping that one in. So yeah, go check out the Expanse. And those would be my
Very nice
recommendations. Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed. So, Melissa, we have picked out some TV shows to round out the end of our year here.
We sure have.
Can you introduce us to the first one?
Do you want to go ahead and say what both of them are?
Why not?
One leads into the other. Yeah. Let's work our way backwards. Our final episode of the year, which we'll record in early December this year, to prepare for its return in January with season 2. For our final episode of the year, we are going to be rewatching season 1 of Severance. You and I have both already seen the show, but we never covered it on the review show. We never did a reactor core. We wanted a good, meaty podcast episode about the show we really like.
Yeah, absolutely.
And since we watched The Family Man for our Nicolas Cage movie in July, that was Christmas. We already did Christmas. We bought ourselves a pass to do not Christmas here in December. Severance, show directed by Ben Stiller. There's an earlier TV show Ben Stiller has worked on. This is one I've been curious about. It's been on my list for a while, and it just got added to Netflix. It's right there, big splash page. This seems like the time to watch it. So for our next episode here in 2 weeks, we're going to be watching Escape at Dannemora. This was a limited series. I believe it's only, I don't know, like 10 episodes, 8, 10, 12, one of those. Just a limited, just a little one. Yeah. And I believe it's based on true events. The Google sidebar is telling me the small, sleepy town of Dannemora is home to the Clinton Correctional Facility, a maximum security prison. 2 inmates, Richard Matt and David Sweat, become entangled in the life of a married female prison employee in the summer of 2015. Tilly Mitchell, an employee at Clinton Correctional Facility, becomes romantically entangled with both conflicts. Yeah, you just said that. And aids in their escape from the facility. Emmy winner Ben Stiller executive produces and directs all episodes. This also stars Severance alum Patricia Arquette. And David Morse!
I was just about to say that. Back-to-back Morse.
Back-to-back Morse!
If you liked David Morse, don't worry. We got Morse for you.
The more Morse, the merrier.
Yeah, this is also one I am not familiar with. To be honest, seeing Ben Stiller's name on Severance kind of blew my mind when I finally was able to watch it. Since then, I've learned that he has produced and written a lot of a lot more stuff, but that was something I did not know about his career. So excited to check out more stuff that he was involved in.
Yeah.
So yeah. Interesting. Good stuff. And then I cannot wait for season 2 of Severance, so I'm excited to get to re-watch that. It was something I was going to be doing anyways. So excited to get to be able to cover it here on the show at the end of the year. Final episode of the year. At least final regular episode.
Yes, as we sever our ties with 2024 and become entirely 2025.
Yep. Indeed. Cool. Well, yeah, we will do Escape from Dannemora next episode. Escape
at Dannemora.
Thank you. Escape at Dannemora. Should be available on Netflix, at least here in the United States. And yeah, I think that should be a good time. Indeed. Well, let's wrap things up right there then. Melissa, where can the people find you on the internet? Where can they contact you?
They can contact me in a manner that you would have done in 1997 when Contact came out. Just email me. I got an inbox. You can email me at yourhostmelissa@gmail.com.
Indeed. If you guys want to get in contact with me, I am at Kyle Springer. And if you guys would like to stay up to date with all the stuff that we do here at the Whatnauts, we are at the Whatnauts Official on Threads. So please go like, share, and subscribe. That would help us out a ton. If you're watching this on YouTube, got plenty more videos for you to check out right over there on that side of the screen. And yeah, this has been number 305 of the Whatnauts Review Show. We will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.